Like, how do you create that compelling story? How do you make it unique? Like, what questions can you ask?
First step every time is the music. The music is one of the first things I choose.
I want to create more than a wedding film. I think, once you've mastered the wedding day, you start getting a little bit bored, a little bit complacent. You're like, okay, there's got to be more to this.
It is a very templatized process. Day 1 music, day 2 skeleton, day 3 roadmap, and then 4 and 5 are like clips, color grading, and audio.
There it is, an award-winning wedding film right there. This is Max, and him and his wife, Courtney, are award-winning wedding filmmakers that tackle storytelling for weddings in a very approachable and non-traditional way. And it's very clear why they are award-winning wedding filmmakers, because of how effortlessly and seamless they blend drama, personality, and authenticity into every film they create. So naturally, I wanted to figure out, what is the secret sauce? What is the recipe that goes into making an award-winning wedding film? What he does that is unique and maybe different in the industry, and what qualities are necessary to create this type of film? So in this episode today, you're going to learn Max's process and how he tackles every wedding to create a truly unique story, his step-by-step formula on how he creates his wedding films, how he overcomes challenges on the wedding day even when the story may not be present, and last we talk about how to build a successful business that is recession-proof. All of that and more is in store for this week's episode, so I hope you stick around until the very end. So without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. Well, Max, thank you so much for taking the time. Honestly, longtime fan, first time caller over here. So really excited to have you on, man.
Dude, thank you for having me, man. Right back at you, dude. This is such an honor to be talking to you, been watching your channel, and definitely learned a lot from you, and it's super cool to be here, man. So thanks for having me.
What I find so interesting about your work and the wedding films that you put out, first off, you're a wedding film award winner, which is really cool. I was watching some of the wedding film finalists this year. I was like, dang, dude, you were hitting in all the finalist categories. I was like, dang, this dude's killing it. But then I watched the one you won last year, and I thought, it's such a creative approach to wedding films that I feel like we really have to dissect, your process and approach, and really just unpack the anatomy of what a award-winning wedding film looks like.
Right.
And I know that that answer can be very nuanced. It can be very complex.
Yeah.
So just diving into the first question, how do you approach storytelling to make each wedding film unique to the couple's story?
Yeah. Well, I think it all begins on the first call that we have with them. Every couple that we have, it does start with a video, a Zoom call, kind of what we're doing now. Honestly, to be frank, if they refuse to do that step, I refuse to work with them, because I need to know who you are. And I know that's not for everyone. There's in the ultra luxury space, there's, that some people don't even get to meet their couples until the wedding day. That's not for us. We are very much wanting to know who these couples are. And so it all starts on that call. And a majority of that call consists of asking questions about their life, right? It starts off with the basics, hey, tell me how you guys met, right? And what that first date was like. Okay, now fast forward to the proposal. What was that like, And then you shift into some really basic fundamental things, what do you do for a living, right? And then you shift into more personal, okay, when you guys aren't working, what are you doing for fun? What is it that matter? What do you do when you have that time off with each other? What is it that you like? And it has to be in agreement, not your separate hobbies. What is that thing that you love to do with each other? And you get all kinds of answers, right? And people love to cook together. People love to, take their dogs to the park. People love to travel together. And so I like to capitalize on that call and be like, okay, cool. So there's a reason why I asked that question. Have you watched our films? Hopefully you have at this point, because it's kind of like a prerequisite to jumping on that call. It's hey, make sure you watch a few of our films to make sure we're your vibe. And even better, if you find one that resonates with you, let me know, because that'll help me kind of direct the style of the film that we're going to do for you. But I say to them, and this is verbatim, it's almost down to a script at this point. But I'm just hey, there's a reason why I asked that question. So in case you haven't watched our films, it's a little different than most. Now, I haven't pioneered the story sessions. That wasn't my idea. I didn't invent it. In fact, the first person I think I heard it from was Chris from Good Coast Studios. He was the first one that started this whole concept, but we loved that idea. And so we took a combination of that a little long distance, and they're kind of, home video vibes and bottle brush. And kind of, we like to think that we're like all those three people kind of mash into one. Anyways, I capitalize on that call though, and I say like, okay, cool. So I want you to understand that your wedding film is so much more than just your wedding day to us. It is your story. And my job, I tell them, I make this very clear and make sure that they're on board with this. But I say, like, my job is not just to capture your wedding day, it is to tell your story. A wedding day is just a small glimpse of who you are. It's just the surface bit. And these story sessions really show more depth to who you are. So they either are bought into that on that call in that moment, or they're not. And I make sure at that point of the call, like, this is your chance to turn back or not. And I say, like, you need to be okay with that now or not at all, because these story sessions are pretty much baked into every package we offer. It's default. You have to do it with us, because if I don't have that story session, I can't really show that much depth to who you are. In my opinion, in my style of storytelling. I'm not to say that anyone that's not doing story sessions, by the way, like your films, for example, are phenomenal, like super good, but you also have done some of those things too. Yeah. But I guess I'm just saying that that storytelling aspect, it's all from those story sessions. And so that part of their lives is going to be the unique thing that is not going to be in anyone else's film. And we've had everything from skydiving to like couples want to play basketball together, bike riding. Hey, we're very introverted. Can we just watch Netflix and order a pizza and just chill in our living room? I'm like, yes, hell yes, I'll make it look good too. And so that's, I don't know if that answers your question, but those aspects of like those things they love to do together. And then also too, don't limit it to just them. Right? Mm-hmm. Like say like, hey, it maybe family and friends is important to you. So let's have them come over, have a board game night, crack open a bottle of wine or get the drinks out, whatever, like show that aspect to their lives, And so that's factor one. And then factor two this year is the couch conversations we've been doing. We call them couch conversations, where essentially we have a list of questions that we will have them ask each other. And it starts like kind of funny, and then it gets really deep, like starting with like, hey, who was more nervous on our first date? Hey, who was, like what are the things you loved about me? What are the things you noticed about me? And then it comes down to like, hey, like what does love mean to you? And it has gotten some of the most organic and real pieces of narrative for the films, which again is just another piece that's making it unique and stand out, as opposed to like, Billy, I can't believe this day is finally here. This and that, and so right. there's just organic pieces to that we love. But I don't know if that answers your question, but I would say that those are the things, I guess, that makes the storytelling unique to each couple.
With wedding season in full swing, now is the time to consider hiring a video editing service to help you alleviate the stressors of backlog. Take it from me, someone who has spent years wasting away in front of a computer, wishing I had that time back, wishing I had a way to just kick that stress out of my life, grow my business, and spend time with those that matter most. And that is where Uncut Gems comes into play. They are a high-quality video editing service that I have been using for the last few months to really help me alleviate that stress in my life. And right now, they are offering you guys 65% off on your first edit. So head over to uncutgems.com, use my code Wayward65 at checkout so that you can kick backlog in the face and get back to being excited about your business. The story sessions are becoming a standard now for a lot of filmmakers, because I'm much like you. Like, I want to create more than a wedding film. I think, once you've mastered the wedding day, you start getting a little bit bored, a little bit complacent. You're like, okay, there's got to be more to this that we can do. And I think that's where a lot of filmmakers kind of struggle, right? They're wanting to tell this compelling story, but they're only looking at it at like the wedding day. They're only looking like towards like, how can I create a powerful story just from this one day? And you can, but you can only do that if you are really lucky. And I say lucky because it's kind of like the perfect storm. And from my own experience, this is what I found. Like, when I was just focused on filming just one day, just the wedding, that's it. I found that it's like, if I'm going to make a really powerful film, I need a list of things to go right, right? I need it to be a good location.
Yeah.
Okay. I need good weather. Okay. I need either overcast or just beautiful sunset. I don't need just a hailstorm or things that could really just diminish the value of the story I'm trying to create.
Yep.
3, I need a charismatic couple. I need couples that want to be there at their wedding, that don't hate every part of this. I need powerful, articulate speeches. And I need all these heartfelt vows. So there's so many things that go into creating a powerful story just from the wedding day. But if you go deeper, if you take that extra step, I think that's where the magic is into creating that story. And I love that you hammered down in some of the questions that you ask couples, because I feel like that's another pain point too. And for filmmakers, is how do you create that compelling story? How do you make it unique? What questions can you ask? And yeah, I think that's really great for anyone who just struggles with, telling a powerful story. And, it really doesn't have to be as complex as we like to make it. I mean, I know I like to make everything complicated because I'm always in my head every single stage of the journey. And so I love that it's non-negotiable, because another pain point I feel like is that I've heard from filmmakers is they say, yeah, I want to do a story session, but the couple's just not into it, or, they don't see the value in it. So how did you show that value to the couple? When was the first story session? How did you kind of promote it and, win the couple over into getting them to be really excited about doing that? Because I feel like that's a struggle. That's a pain point.
Yeah. It's funny. Technically, our first story session was our very first film when we went full time. We didn't call it that at the time. We didn't even know about them, but we were trying to get our business off the ground. And so we were doing hey, if you book us, we'll do a free engagement video for you. An engagement session photo, but it's video. And we didn't know anything about Good Coast Studios yet. So we technically were kind of doing it accidentally at the time. But yeah, so we did that a few times, and then, but it wasn't it was just kind of an add-on at that point. We did 4 or 5 free engagement sessions. Okay, that's enough. That's a lot of work. Okay, let's just get back to the regular wedding. And then our wedding film started to feel stale. I started to feel I was man, I just feel I don't know. I feel none of these are really standing out. They're just not really there's nothing super unique about either. They're vows and it's all beautiful. But man, I want this couple to feel man, no one is ever going to have a wedding video like ours because of X, Y, and Z. And then after, meeting Chris from Good Co. and hearing more about others doing this story session thing, we're just okay, this needs to be a regular thing of how we do things. Because every film that we have, because we did the engagement video, but we would splice pieces of that engagement video in the film. And the first time we officially did that, it was so cool. I was so we filmed this couple doing board games at their house, and then they did a slow dance on their front porch. And then during the highlight film, they're doing a slow dance on the dance floor. And it's the climax of the film, all these quick cuts. And it shows them slow dancing, and then it would cut to the slow dance on the porch. So their first dance, dancing on the porch. And it was seamless. And to this day, I mean, that film, there's other parts of it are so outdated in my editing style, but that particular part, I'm so proud of. I'm damn, that looks good. Okay, we need to do this more, But to sell it to couples, to answer your question, I spent a good amount of time talking about that on the call. This all happens on the call, and the branding too. The branding is built so much around it, and making sure you're displaying films that have that story session drive in the focus, right? And that's why another prerequisite to jumping on that call is please watch our films. Yeah. Please watch our film, because if you don't, it's gonna be really awkward. And I even tell people on the call, I'm hey, look, after I go through the whole story session spiel, if this is not your thing, that's okay. We're just not for you. I have a list of videographers I know that don't do story sessions, and they're great at what they do. Here's their Instagrams. I'm good friends with them, blah, blah, blah. Send them off, and no hard feelings. I say it's the reason why a lot of people don't book us. But it's also the reason why a lot of people do book us, because not everyone in Michigan is doing that. And honestly, at this point, dude, like since we've done a rebrand, and because of there's like a whole page that talks about story sessions on our website, and our films and all that stuff is so focused on it that we've gotten to a point where we barely have to convince couples anymore. I do address it on the call and make sure they're on board with that style and everything, and it's like a quick 5-minute spiel, like, hey, all right, cool, are we on board? Okay, let's move forward on the call. But like everything that we've built now is at a point where I barely have to create that value anymore. But the value is created in your films when you make it, a part of that. But to all those listening to this podcast who like are trying to start right in that fresh spot, and we're like, well, I don't have that rebrand, I don't have that foundation built, I would say to you that like bring it up to your couples, and also do it for free. Yes. Don't charge them, right? Like say like, hey, this is something I really want to do, and here's why. This is so much more depth to who you are. There's so much more. You're not just a bride and groom. You are a couple that cares about places and people and things in your life that matter to you. And I want someone to watch your film and know that part of you. This is not just a wedding day. Like I said before, this is a story. This is the story of you two. And what is it that is important to you? Is it the place where you first met? Is it the place of your first kiss, your first date? What is it? I want to dig into that part of you, and I want to show that in your film. Because I'm going to tell you guys right now, the couple, right? I'm going to tell you right now, like, go watch a bunch of wedding films. By the way, most people haven't watched a lot of wedding films as much as we have. So we think, and I think here's the problem. We assume that couples have watched a ton of wedding films, and they should just know that this is important. They haven't. They've watched like, a few here and there because they're doing a little searching. But the chances are the only films they've seen are the traditional vanilla wedding films that we know of. And so I say that to them, like, those are great. There's nothing wrong with them. But the fact is, after a certain point of watching a certain amount of wedding films, and trust me, I've watched thousands, it starts to feel templatized at a certain point. And I don't want you to have that. I don't want to create something like that for you. I want to create something better and unique and deep and depth to who you are. So at that point, if you have to go even further than that, don't book them. These aren't your people. These aren't your clients. But like, they're either bought into that or not.
You have to go further. You have to go deeper with your couple. And the way that it's going to look different and unique to you is because your perspective and how you see the world and tell a story can be different, right? That's it. The process might look the same. The techniques might look the same, but it's about really the couple's personality and the way that you're going to shape and mold that story. And I guess really too, just to like, if we can try to simplify the wedding film story and just dive into the anatomy of it. Like if there had to be a formula for how you typically go about like approaching the story, like you've done the consultation call with the couple, you've done the story session, you filmed the wedding day. Now you're sitting in front of this beast, right? This empty canvas that oftentimes intimidates the crap out of us. And I feel like it's such a huge pain point for a lot of us. We see that empty timeline and we're like, I don't know where to start. So like for you and your process and, seeing all your films just have such a uniqueness to them. Like what is going through your mind when you're looking at this wedding film?
I do have a formula, actually. I do follow. But like I said, we started the consult call. And then after that, it's brainstorming with them on what they want that story session to be. And honestly, this is the easy part. This is all the easy stuff is like, okay, what are we going to do? I mean, to me, Frank, I don't mean this in the way that I don't care, but it doesn't really matter what we do. I'm going to make that footage look good. What matters to me the most is that narrative. And like, will I get to a place of authentic emotion with them? And that's not always the case. Like I could have the greatest story session, but if they don't like show me that depth of emotion in their vows or their couch conversation, and I have no toasts and nothing from the ceremony that really hits there, the film just doesn't hit. And that's okay. That happens sometimes. And those are things that are out of our control, and we just have to be okay with that. So this business, as you already know, it's just a gamble. It really is. Like, even if like the couple loves your work and you vibe with them on the call, they're either going to show you emotion or not. Beautiful venue, beautiful story session. Great. Did they really go to those depths? They did not. And I have a perfect example. I'm working on a film right now. Incredible story session, beautiful wedding, but the couple was just like, I've had better conversations with cheese. Like, it's like just no personality. Like, I did the couch conversation, and it's like they had
Wow.
never
Yeah.
talked to each other before. And it wasn't because it was in front of the camera. They're just really,
Right.
really, really introverted people, which that personality doesn't always mesh well with our brand. Like, we're always funky, fun, weird, vibes, what we're aiming for. But sometimes we have those couples, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I just have to be okay with that. I will do the best I can to make a great film for them. But sorry, I'm kind of going off track here a little bit, maybe. But I already kind of forgot.
No,
your
it's okay.
question
That was a great response. Just like dive
Sorry.
into your editing process for a second.
First step every time is the music. First step, and that's probably what it is for most filmmakers. That's nothing like groundbreaking, but the music is one of the first things I choose. But it's also a combo of like kind of sifting through the audio and like, do I have enough like funny content to throw some like funny part, like a upbeat part of the film, right? Something funny from the toasts, their vows, or something like that. And then do I have enough? How much like depth content do I have from their vows and their ceremony and toasts and stuff like that? Like, how much emotion, like deep emotion, was I able to extract from like my film? And so once I have a gauge of how much of that, it kind of dictates the song I'm going to choose. So like, for example, if I have a very small amount of like great vow or letters or couch conversation moments, I'm going to choose a lyrical song for the sentimental part of the film. And by the way, most of my films are half upbeat, half slow and sentimental most of the time. There's always one upbeat song and then one like slow sentimental song. But that slow and sentimental song, if there's really nothing said, it's going to be a lyrical song, right? A good lyrical song. But if it's not, or if there was like a lot to extract in terms of like emotion from the couples and the wedding, then it's going to be a little less lyrical. And because I need more room to drop those audio bits in. But the balance too, and I think a lot of filmmakers, they just choose really weird spots to like drop in audio bits. Like, please let that song be a character in your film. Like, if you don't treat it with that respect, you're gonna feel like something's off. You're never gonna figure out what it is. That's usually one of the things I think is a common mistake, is like, have this great song, but then like halfway through chorus number 1, you put in a toast that just didn't belong at all. Like, I don't know why this toast was there. Like, it just didn't, to each their own. It's all subjective, but the fact is, like, I feel like music is something that just doesn't get the respect it deserves. So like, when you're choosing your song and you're putting that song in, like, treat it as such, give it respect. So I have that song in the timeline. That's the first thing. I use Final Cut. So I put that first. That's in like the main timeline. I listen to it and I just put beat markers down because I'm a musician. I need to have beat markers to lock into. And then I create the skeleton. And so the skeleton is where I find those audio bits that I'm like, hey, this is a good part. This is a good thing. And I literally just put it on the same timeline off to the side. People are listening, like, this might be a little chaotic method, but this is the facts. You asked, and so I'm answering. So you have all this like audio bits on the far right of the timeline, and I go over, I'm like, okay, I want that part in the intro here. Okay, now let the verse start, turn up the music. Okay, now, and then get to the first chorus. Okay, second verse, I don't need to hear the whole first verse, so let's turn it down a little bit. Let's bring in the next audio piece, right? And so I'm doing this kind of bit by bit throughout the whole film, and I have the skeleton, which is composed of just the music and the things I'm going to hear, like the actual audio bits of vows, toast, etc. So skeleton created. The next day, which is usually what happens, because that's like, that takes me a day usually. The next day, I do the roadmap. And so the roadmap is where I'll put little title placeholders that are the length of a certain part of the film. So I will like say, I know in verse 1, I want this section to be prep in the morning with just the girls. I want this to be just girls prep. So I'll put a placeholder in there, just a title, so I know, like, hey, that's the thing I want there. And then the next placeholder will be, you know, the guy's prep. Now it's just groom solo shots, and I'll make it the exact length. Like I know, like just this length, this beat, this beat, this beat, shift over to the girls prep kind of thing. That's why those beat markers are such a huge help. I know like exactly how long I need it to be. So once that's complete, that's the roadmap. And now I know exactly what kind of clips I want to put in each part of the film. Okay, so then it's just laying down the clips and just kind of sifting through and looking for your best shots from those parts of the day. But it's important to know as well before you create that roadmap that, like, you know, you're aware of the amount of content you have. Like, don't create a ton of sections in your song where it's a bunch of bride and groom shots. If you only had 5 minutes of the bride and groom, and then all of a sudden you are out of ammo, is what I like to say. Like, I have run out of ammo. I don't have any more bride, which is, by the way, story sessions, huge help, because now you can reference back to those shots if you didn't have big window. But I color grade as I go. Each clip, I just kind of put an effect and I do it as I go. I know it's not ideal for everyone, but for me, it's just quick. I like to see how the shot is going to look before I officially put it in the timeline. And then a little bit of sound editing.
It is an award-winning wedding film right there.
It's each part of it really is a day, and it is a very templatized process of how I do things. Day 1, music. Day 2, skeleton. Day 3, roadmap. And then 4 and 5 are like clips, color grading, and audio. And so generally it takes me a week and a half.
Yeah, so many great key points that you mentioned. Like the first is with music. You know, I always like make a point to, like you said, you want to have parallels with your music. You know, you want to make those connections with your music. Yeah. And it's such a huge motivator creatively, and it's such a driving force in your story. And so you get your music right, chances are, you know, you're going to have a great film. Because it really does make all the difference. The second thing is that, you know, you have a process, you have like an order of events and how you tackle the wedding film. And I think that could really help a lot of people just get out of their own head, because a lot of people look at it, and I'm one of those people, I will go ahead and admit it. I look at the wedding film and I see this mountain in front of me, and you know, yeah, sure, I have a process and I've done wedding films the same way multiple times, but I guess what I get in my head about is I'm trying to think of how I can tackle it differently. But if you just keep the structure in terms of how you go about finding your story and, you know, getting into that creative flow, so to speak, is what I like to say, then having a system is the best way to kind of get out of that editing rut. Just, you know, help you out on, you know, during this process. And that was a really great tip. And I love that you put, you know, sections in there that just tell you, you know, what you want this part to be, what you want this part to be. And it's just, I love the whole process in general, because I think everyone has such a unique way of how they go about finding that story and you know, finding those nuances and going deeper with each couple. And I feel like this kind of answered one of my questions I had about how you stand out in the crowded market. And I think this is why, is because, you know, you demand that, you know, personal touch for every single couple's film. You know, you don't want it to be a cookie cutter version of what, you know, the industry has been. You want it to be something that's truly going to be unique and timeless for their family. And I think that's always just a huge USP, unique selling proposition that just like really demands, you know, quality. And when couples come to you, they know exactly what they're getting. There's no secrets. There's no fluff. It's just like, hey, this is what we do. This is who we are. This is what we want for you. And I love that approach. And so I guess really just diving into the last thing I want to touch on, you know, I was in one of the Facebook groups or something, and you know, for the last few months, you know, we've kind of been discussing too, just like the state of the industry, right? It's a little different, you know, it's a little muddy.
Yeah.
So, you know, for some people, I would say, but, you know, I feel like for others, you know, others are still thriving. And I feel like you're one of them that are still kind of doing really consistent. And I think it is a testament to obviously the system that you've built in your business, the, the brand that you curated throughout the years, and, the personality that's truly clear in the work that you do. What is some like advice that you could give filmmakers that you feel could help them build a brand that is, recession proof? I know it's a tough question because I even try to wrestle with that, that question and answer. And I'm like, maybe Max knows. I need Max's insight and wisdom.
I was worried you were going to ask me this question.
Well, I feel like something you're doing is working, right? And I feel like too. Yeah, I mean, maybe we've already answered it. Maybe the question, the answer's in everything that we've already stated. How you approach storytelling, how you capture those, those personalities in a genuine and authentic way, and how you tackle that edit and story, and how you position your brand. And I feel like a lot of it probably is all relative to that, because there's some people that think your work doesn't sell itself, but I feel like for some people it definitely does. I feel like that's where some people are still doing really well, is the filmmakers that have such a unique product and something that is just, when you see it, you want it. And it doesn't matter what it costs. Like, it's like, hey, I'm going to max out a credit card to get it. One of those things. I mean, because the truth is people are still spending money on weddings. Weddings are still happening. Yeah, there might be a less number going around right now, but people are still getting married. And like year 2025, what does that look like right now?
So we're about halfway booked for next year, maybe a little over. We're a little over halfway booked next year, but I was worried you're going to ask me this question. It's like, God, I just don't feel like I have some golden nugget answer that, like, I'm thank you, Jesus. Like, I'm a believer, and I do believe like God has played a huge part in, because I just, like, I think we're good, but like, we're also still babies in this industry. Like, we started full time in 2021, right? So we haven't been around that long, and we did our first couple films in 2015, and then like a few here and there. And my wife and I were pastors for a while, and like, so we never touched film again for a long time until 2021 when we went full time. But man, like, I hate that people are struggling. I hate that there's people out there that are not as fortunate as we are. I'm just like, what did I do to deserve this? I don't know. Like, because some of these people are like far better filmmakers than I am. Like, they're just like, there are also like award-winning filmmakers out there right now that are struggling to get work. So I don't know. I don't have a great answer, but I will say that we've been doing things the same for a long time. So I don't think it's something that we all of a sudden pivoted and changed once this year hit or anything. It's just like, we created good habits the moment we went full time. Quick story. So when we started in 2021, this is when Facebook ads were actually really helpful and they worked. But back then there was a guy who, I never heard of him, but he friended me anyways. He ran ads for wedding videographers. This is very specific. So he was reaching out to wedding videographers, and I was one of the people who was desperate, because I had left my job, and I had no bookings, by the way. I left my full-time job as a pastor with not a single booking on the calendar for 2021. And so I was like, but whatever. I was like putting all my eggs in this basket, like, whatever. But yeah, like, I'll pay you. He's like, if you pay me, I'll run ads for your business. Just create a couple reels, and I will do all the copy and all this and run ads. And this guy also encouraged me to, like, whenever I got a lead, hey, make sure you follow up with a text video to the couple right away the moment you get it. Cool, awesome. And then make sure you have this email follow up to schedule with a link to schedule the call. Like, do everything within 12 hours and make sure you're doing that. Like, cool, awesome. And I followed his steps. He recommended, and we had all of 2021 booked within 3 months. And we made more money than I'd ever made as a pastor, obviously, in my life. And so I was like, holy crap, this is insane. I started recommending this guy to people, and no one got the results. No one that they would come to me and be like, dude, your guy, like, I'm not getting any bookings, whatever. And I did a little more digging, and I found out that like, these people were not doing the follow-up things. They were just paying him to run the ads and just hoping for all the stars to align. There's so many things in that follow-up process that I think is the reason why we booked a lot of those, and how we communicate and what I was saying to them. I'm saying this as an example because, like, I think we just have developed good habits over the years that have served us so well, and that's one of them. We still do that. Doesn't matter how many inquiries we get. I will always send a quick text video call, text video like to the couple, like on my phone, like, hey, I'm Max. Thank you for reaching out. Just wanted you to know we're excited to talk to you. Blah blah blah. Here's a link to your call, whatever. So that's one, and then like two, teasers always within the first week of the wedding, like getting a teaser out. We've booked so many weddings just on teasers alone, and inviting people to collaborate, networking with planners. Like, it's never just one single thing, right? It's a multitude of good habits that I think we have that have kept us afloat and have kept us over halfway booked for next year. Our work is good, but I think that really is a small percentage of it. It really is like we are strictly referral. We're strictly referral based bookings now. Everything is connected. It's all referral based, which I never thought I'd be there. I thought I was going to be running ads for the rest of my life. Right. I was like, oh, this works. And like all of a sudden, like I just didn't need to anymore. It was really, I'm so grateful for that. But I don't know, man. I don't know if that answers your question, but I guess to chalk it up to make good habits, find those little things that like you can improve on. And they are really quick, easy little things, you know, whether it be in your edit, how fast you're getting your teaser out. Are you inviting people to collab, right, on your Instagram post? Because that has made a massive difference because the algorithm on Instagram sucks right now, and that's the best way to get reach. And things like that. Like, talk to people, network, be of service on the wedding day, be fun, be a people person. That's another thing, man. I'm witnessing. I've been working with photographers that are like high-end photographers. I'm like, wow, I'm so excited to finally meet you. You're like 100,000 followers, and they are the least people I've ever met. Not every single one, but like once in a while, it's like, oh, there's this like Brides Vogue published photographer. Like, that's such a big deal. And then you get to work with them, and they don't know how to have fun because they're just like, and that's, I don't know. So I'm like going off. I'm like going off on total random side tangents here, but all this to say, create good habits. Create good habits for yourself in every aspect of your business, and don't just sit there and blame the economy. There are things that we can do with just the little things. It's a lot of times it really is just small things. So I don't know if that answers the question, and I hope that's somewhat helpful for those listening. But it's not some, massive thing, unless you really do need a rebrand. Then it is a big thing, because that is a case for a lot of people.
So many good things in that. I mean, I think the biggest nugget in that is just to make good habits. I think that's what plagued me early on in my business. I made a lot of bad habits financially, made a lot of bad habits in just like relationships, and not really nurturing those the way I needed to, because I feel like the biggest, contributor to businesses thriving in this industry, and with most industries, I feel like it's all in the relationships that you've built and formed and, grown with those people along the way. Like networking is always such a huge component to success in this industry, and getting to the place where you're at a referral base. That's just where your couples are coming from, which is amazing. Like, that's what you want. You don't want to have to worry about like marketing pages or Google ads or anything else. Word of mouth has like been the lifeblood of my business. And I see it's also for yours as well. And I the last thing that you said that I love is just like not blaming the economy, which is so easy, because obviously we see it. We know inflation is high. We know there's a lot of bad stuff out there right now, but like, I think blaming the world for your problems is the easy thing to do. But instead, like taking that backseat approach and looking at your business and your process and your brand and seeing where there's gaps that you need to fill. And I think that's like the best way to just build a brand that is recession proof, is to just not blame the world for your problems, build good habits, and, just keep moving forward and building those relationships. And I think that's like the best answer that you could possibly give. So that was perfect. I love that.
Well, I hope it helped someone out there.
Dude, I appreciate you just taking the time. This has been such an eye-opening and encouraging, look into your process and, how you create your wedding films and how you've built a brand that is just, really strong and centered on, really awesome values. And I love just all the work that you're putting out there. I get jealous over your creativity because I'm just like, man, this dude is just, I need to just pick his brain on like some creative techniques, because just the way he's starting these films, one of them, you started a film with the wedding singer. And I was like, that was the one that really solidified. I was like, yeah, I got to get this guy on the call, because that was like my favorite movie. Like, I'm just like, dude, if I saw this in my wedding film, I'd just be like, I mean, this is the greatest wedding film I've ever seen. Like, this is.
You know what's funny, really quick, about that film is that couple, I had no idea if that film was going to kill it or not, because they were also kind of like, just like, they
Sure.
never really got super emotional. But they did at a couple points, but it was just kind of, I don't know, like the timeline got so botched that day. You know, like you're shooting a wedding, and you're just like, I don't know if I'm even going to show this wedding. I'm like, dude, that's how I felt throughout that wedding.
Which is crazy, because
so,
then
like,
it became like
it's
a
so ironic
film.
That's what's ironic, because I was like, yeah, I really was initially thinking as we were filming, like, I'll make this. I can make something out of it. Thankfully, they only got like our lowest package, so I only have to do like a 3 to 4 minute highlight film out of this. But like, I don't know if anyone's gonna see this. Oh god, this is such a mess. It was so many things that went wrong with the timeline, blah blah, and so yeah, it was so ironic. But they had that playing at the ceremony, and I was like, what if I did something with this?
Yeah.
And it was Courtney's idea, actually. Which, by the way, I apologize. She couldn't be on this call. We have 2 toddlers upstairs, and they'll destroy our house. But yeah, man, it's just ironic with that film. But I appreciate that. I'm glad you had me on today. I'm super honored. I like whatever, dude. Your films are just as epic and good. Like, incredible work that you do. So it's so cool to be here, and it's such an honor to be invited on here to talk with you. And I really hope that some of the things I had to say will pour some light and wisdom on somebody out there listening and help one of you guys out. And for those of you out there that are listening, like, please feel free to DM us on Instagram and ask questions. I'm not one of those people that's just going to like withhold information. I was there. I was in the beginning at 1.2, and I bugged the hell out of people with questions on Instagram. Pretty sure there's some filmmakers out there today that like hate me and never talk to me anymore, because I was always like, what about this? What about that? You can always approach me with those questions. If you're out there and you're listening, like, please let me know, because I know what it's like. I've been there. So
where can people find you to reach out to you?
Yeah. So we are on Instagram is a big spot for us. So that is thesmiths.film. Thesmiths.film is where you can find us. That's the biggest spot to communicate. Otherwise, you can go to our website, www.thesmiths.film. But there it is. Pretty straightforward.
Oh man, I love that. Yeah, I appreciate you joining and taking the time. Yeah, everyone listening, go follow, go blow up his DMs, ask him questions. He's a wealth of knowledge, and his films are just really inspiring and can help give you some creative edge. So thank you guys so much for watching and tuning into this week's podcast. If you like it, like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, keep creating and telling beautiful stories. Peace.
I was something trying to take your peace. Posted up free, written your mind with the lifetime lease. Those squatters' rights, scary nights, camping out in your dreams.